How many threat calls were issued and who was really behind this orchestrated event? Let's take a look at the headlines we're tracking for you at this hour. For the first time, the Amravati threat caller on tape. That exclusive conversation on the show this evening. Man who speaks to Republic TV admits to making a threat call to Umesh. Republic exposes the ultimate threat caller, the full nexus behind the Amravati murder now exposed. Ultimate Amravati clincher on Republic 10 CCTV tapes expose the hate-killing truth. Starting this edition of This Is Exclusive with the big Republic investigation. Right from day one, we've been telling you how Umesh Kolhe, he was killed, he was threatened, and all of this has also been caught on tapes. In fact, we've also accessed multiple CCTV footages that go on to show that there was a recce that was done of the establishments. And not just that, his residence too was recce. But despite that, it took over 11 days for the Amravati police to arrest the main accused. Tonight, we get to the threat tape. Multiple calls were basically made to Umesh. And these were not just normal calls that were made to Umesh Kolhe. In fact, all these calls came with some threat. There was a WhatsApp group that was also created. Members of that particular group were actively participating in it. They were the ones who were issuing these threats to Umesh Kolhe. In fact, we confronted one such caller. Listen in.
आप सबका नंबर वगैरह भी घूम रहा था कि क्या कहते हैं जो वीडियो वगैरह बनवाए हैं ना,
हाँ,
ये प्रेशर वगैरह डाल के बनवाए गए थे और ये खाली एक्चुअली पॉलिटिकल कंस्पिरेसी था। अनिल पांडे का नाम आ रहा है इसमें।
नहीं मैडम, कैसा हमको किसी ने बोला नहीं यार, उसके आइडिया नहीं है। कैसा हम दोस्त ऐसी एक दो जने जैसा चौक पे थे, तो ऐसी एक्चुअली जैसे सभी ने कॉल किए, मैंने नहीं किए। जैसा अमरावती शहर से अपने 30-40 लोगों ने फोन लगाए थे बोलते।
हाँ,
तो एक्चुअली मेरे मोबाइल से ये गलती हो गई कि जैसे मैंने मेरे मोबाइल से फोन लगा के ये बोल दिया,
हाँ,
क्या भाई आपने जो धर्म के खिलाफ जो स्टेटस रखे थे, मैंने बोला
हाँ,
तो वो कैसा निकाल दो। मैंने बोला कैसा इससे जातिवादी वातावरण थोड़ा सा खराब हो सकता। मैंने बोला जैसा नक्शा नक्की आ सकती है ना हिंदू मुसलमान में ऐसे रखेंगे तो।
तो ये
मैंने,
हाँ बोलिए।
तो मैंने बोला ये जैसा निकाल दो आप। मैंने बोला तो मेरे दोस्त ने ले लिया, दूसरे फिर तीसरे दोस्त ने ले लिया था, ऐसी हो गया था मैडम।
अच्छा, तो आपके साथ में फिर दूसरे लोग थे? क्योंकि ऐसे बहुत सारे नंबर आ रहे थे कि उनसे फोन जा रहे थे वगैरह।
नहीं मैडम, नहीं, इसी मैंने खाली मेरे मोबाइल से लगा के बोल दिया था जैसा।
अच्छा,
बाकी के तो लोगों को मालूम नहीं था। बाकी के लोगों को फिर मैंने जैसे टीवी पे देखा कि जैसे अमरावती शहर से जैसे 30-40 लोगों ने फोन लगाए थे करके।
अच्छा, तो कितने लोग थे आपके साथ में फिर?
क्या बोले मैडम?
कितने लोग थे आपके साथ में? आपने बोला बहुत सारे लोगों ने फिर वो कॉल करके उनको बोला ना माफीनामा मांगने के लिए वगैरह।
नहीं, उनकी तो आइडिया नहीं, मैंने टीवी पे देखा हूँ मैडम, टीवी पे बताया ना।
अच्छा, क्या बताया है?
टीवी पे बताया है कि जैसा भाई और कोई जैसे लोग है करके, जैसे उनको धमकी दे रहे थे 30-40 लोगों के, जैसे उनको कॉल रहते फोन रहते।
नहीं, ये तो उसमें ऐसे शब्द भी यूज किए ना कि धर्म के नाम पे काट देंगे वगैरह वगैरह, ऐसे सारे वो भी रिकॉर्डिंग वगैरह आए हैं।
नहीं मैडम, धर्म के नाम पे काट देंगे ऐसा नहीं बोले थे। ऐसा बोले थे कि जैसा हमारे इस्लाम तक के आएंगे तो हम हमारी गर्दन काटने को भी नहीं डरते।
अच्छा,
जैसा उन्होंने खुद की बोला था, जैसे दूसरे की ने बोला था मैम।
अच्छा।
हाँ,
ओके।
Before I bring in my colleague Priyanka, who's got us at this exclusive, let's just put this into perspective. What really transpired before that horrific incident took place, starting from 7th of June. A WhatsApp group is created. In that, several members are part of it. All of them come together and then they start making these threat calls. All these threat calls were directed to one person who goes by the name Umesh Kolhe, who was brutally murdered. Repeatedly, they went on calling Umesh Kolhe, asking him to put out a video apologizing. And remember, this was not just Umesh Kolhe, but there were several others who received similar sort of threat calls. Joining us on this broadcast is my colleague Priyanka. First of all, Priyanka, thank you very much for getting us that big exclusive. You've spoken to one such person who was a member of that particular group. He made those threat calls. And it also turns out that not just Umesh Kolhe, there were several others who were actually receiving the death threats. You've been in Amravati for the last few days. For all of viewers who are tuning in right now, put this into perspective. What really has happened? Who are these people? And what was this group all about?
Well, definitely, Shavan, because what we did was speak to one of the callers itself. In fact, there were several such threat calls that had been made. Let's talk about the group Black Freedom. That is, in fact, under the scrutiny of the local police and the NIA as well, who are looking into those messages that were sent, because this group is being said to be extremely related to the accused who had in fact been conspiring to kill Umesh Kolhe. Now, before that happened, these threats call had been made from June 7th itself, where they had been looking at all the posts that were being made inside this group and the people who had been posting in support of Nupur Sharma as well. All of those people, in fact, were being targeted. Now, as we heard the accused, we heard Shakil as well talking about how there were 4 to 5 people who were sitting in a group, and one after the other they were placing these threat calls to one was Jai Mobile owner, and there were several other doctors as well in Amravati. A very famous doctor here, Dr. Rathi as well, had been called. Several other people. This is mind you happening on June 7th. This is way before the 21st June incident when Umesh Kolhe had been brutally murdered. This really goes to tell us that there was in fact a conspiracy at play way before 21st of June itself. And it had in fact been brewing with these 4 to 5 people as well who were a part of it, who were trying to find out and scrutinize all of these WhatsApp groups and narrow down on names as well. So these are the names that they had found out, and those people had been contacted and they were given threat calls that you need to come out and apologize for your reposting of something that was in support of Nupur Sharma. And when that happened, these were the callers in fact who said that you need to make a video, you need to come out and apologize, or else you will be scared for your life as well. These are the kind of statements that were coming to light, and these are the audio tapes that we have already accessed. But now we're getting our viewers the backstory as to how this entire conspiracy had been brewing in Amravati way before 21st of June, and we are seeing how more and more victims in fact were being scrutinized. They were trying to understand who they can really attack, and then Umesh Kolhe had been narrowed down on, and he was brutally attacked on 21st of June. Apart from that, we are seeing an entire nexus also completely getting uncovered with this conversation that we've had with Shakil, because Shakil tells us, Shavan, in that conversation, he said that his friends were sitting in front of him and they were the ones who were issuing these threat calls as well. And that also tells us that not just these 4 to 5 people who he has named, but there were several other people who had been scrutinizing these WhatsApp groups. And these groups, in fact, was where Umesh Kolhe had also been a member. Along with him, several other people who had gotten these threat calls as well. Now, those are also a part of investigation that is being done by the local police and the NIA. But this gives us a glimpse into how the underbelly of the conspiracy entirely had been in Amravati, and it had been brewing way before 21st of June. Shavan.
Priyanka, I'll request you to stay on as we put out that phone conversation that you've had with the person who issued the threats. Right now, if you see that there was an attempt that was made to perhaps wash his hands off, but the reality essentially being that they were members of a particular group who were issuing the threats and also saying that Umesh Kolhe should apologize. Listen into that conversation that Priyanka had.
आप सबका नंबर वगैरह भी घूम रहा था कि क्या कहते हैं, जो वीडियो वगैरह बनवाए हैं ना,
हाँ
कि प्रेशर वगैरह डाल के बनवाए गए थे और ये खाली एक्चुअली पॉलिटिकल कंस्पिरेसी था, अनिल बोंडे का नाम आ रहा है इसमें।
नहीं मैडम, कैसा हमको किसी ने बोला नहीं और उसके आइडिया नहीं है। कैसा हम दोस्त ऐसी एक दो जने जैसा चौक पे थे, तो ऐसी एक्चुअली जैसे सभी ने कॉल किए, मैंने नहीं किए। जैसे अमरावती शहर से अपने 30-40 लोगों ने फोन लगाए थे बोलते।
हाँ।
तो एक्चुअली मेरे मोबाइल से ये गलती हो गई कि जैसे मैंने मेरे मोबाइल से फोन लगा के ये बोल दिया,
हाँ,
क्या भाई आपने जो धर्म के खिलाफ जो स्टेटस रखे थे, मैंने बोला
हाँ,
तो वो कैसा निकाल दो। मैंने बोला कैसा इससे जातिवादी वातावरण थोड़ा सा खराब हो सकता। मैंने बोला जैसा नक्शा नक्की आ सकती है ना हिंदू मुसलमान में ऐसे रखेंगे तो।
तो ये
तो मैंने
हाँ बोलिए।
तो मैंने बोला ये जैसा निकाल दो आप। मैंने बोला तो मेरे दोस्त ने ले लिया, दूसरे फिर तीसरे दोस्त ने ले लिया था, ऐसी हो गया था मैडम भागी।
अच्छा, तो आपके साथ में फिर दूसरे लोग थे, क्योंकि ऐसे बहुत सारे नंबर्स आ रहे थे कि उनसे फोन जा रहे थे वगैरह।
नहीं मैडम, नहीं सिर्फ मैंने खाली मेरे मोबाइल से लगा के फोन दिया था जैसा।
अच्छा।
बाकी के तो लोगों को मालूम नहीं था। बाकी के लोगों को फिर तो मैंने जैसे टीवी पे देखा कि भाई जैसे अमरावती शहर से जैसे 30-40 लोगों ने फोन लगाए थे करके।
अच्छा, तो कितने लोग थे आपके साथ में फिर?
क्या बोले मैडम?
कितने लोग थे आपके साथ में? आपने बोला बहुत सारे लोगों ने फिर वो कॉल करके उनको बोला ना माफीनामा मांगने के लिए वगैरह।
नहीं, उनकी तो आइडिया नहीं, मैंने टीवी पे देखा हूँ मैडम, टीवी पे बताया ना।
अच्छा, क्या बताया है?
टीवी पे बताया है कि जैसा भाई और कोई जैसे लोग है करके, जैसे उनको धमकी दे रहे थे 30-40 लोगों के, जैसे उनको कॉल रहते फोन रहते।
नहीं, ये तो उसमें ऐसे शब्द भी यूज किए ना कि धर्म के नाम पे काट देंगे वगैरह वगैरह, ऐसे सारे वो भी रिकॉर्डिंग वगैरह आए हैं।
नहीं मैडम, धर्म के नाम पे काट देंगे ऐसा नहीं बोले थे। ऐसा बोले थे कि जैसा हमारे इस्लाम तक के आएंगे तो हम हमारी गर्दन काटने को भी नहीं डरते।
अच्छा,
जैसा उन्होंने खुद की बोला था, जैसे दूसरे की नहीं बोला था मैम।
अच्छा।
हाँ,
ओके।
My colleague Priyanka also spoke to Umesh Kolhe's son, Sanket Kolhe, who's basically narrated what really transpired on that night. Remember, we've also accessed the CCTV footages which we are going to play out on this broadcast to give you a sense of what really transpired on that very night. And not to forget that there was a section who essentially wanted everyone to believe that this was a robbery which has gone wrong, but the reality being completely different. First, listen in to what Sanket Kolhe had to tell my colleague Priyanka.
Sanket Kolhe, the son in fact of Umesh Kolhe, the victim who had in fact been brutally murdered on 21st of June, is meeting with us. He was in fact present during the time that this entire incident had taken place. Sanket, thank you so much for speaking to us. आपको 21st जून की जो ये घटना थी, आप उस समय वहाँ पे मौजूद थे, आपकी आंखों देखी ये पूरी घटना हुई थी। वो सीसीटीवी फुटेज में भी हमने ये फोटो देखी है, काफी ग्रूसम ये जो पूरी घटना थी। मैं आपको दोहराना नहीं चाहती, पर जितना आप हमारे साथ शेयर कर पाएं कि क्या एग्जैक्टली हुआ।
कुछ नहीं, 10-10:15 के बीच में हम लोग निकले थे यहाँ से। दोनों को गाड़ी में 15-20 फीट का डिस्टेंस था। वहाँ पे कुछ लोग ऑलरेडी आके बैठे थे, एक गाड़ी पे था, 2 खाली उतरे हुए थे गाड़ी पे से नीचे थे। हम जब जा रहे थे तो पिताजी थोड़ा आगे थे। पिताजी की गाड़ी मेरे को वहाँ पे रुकी दिखी, यानी जस्ट रुकी थी। तो मेरे को लगा कुछ तो हो रहा है वहाँ पे, तो मैंने गाड़ी की स्पीड बढ़ाया, गाड़ी और दौड़ाए और वहाँ पे गाड़ी जाके छोड़ दिया। जब मेरे को ये सिचुएशन दिखा कि उनके हाथ में चाकू वगैरह है, तो उन्होंने गले में चाकू मार दिया था। बाकी फिर वो लोग मेरे को देख के भाग गए बाद में।
तो ये लोग जो थे उनमें से आप किसी को पहचान भी पा रहे थे? ऐसी कोई बात हो रही थी कि ये लोग बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम से रेकी कर रहे थे, देख रहे थे कि कहाँ कोल्हे साहब जा रहे हैं जहाँ पे वो अकेले होंगे?
मैडम, ऐसे बताना मुश्किल है ना कि अपने पर कौन रेकी कर रहा है करके। ऐसे पता रहता तो खुद ही अलर्ट हो जाते थे।
आपने किसी को नहीं देखा था उस पर?
नहीं, वो किसी को नहीं।
और उसके अलावा और भी काफ़ी सारी जो बातें हो रही हैं कि व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में उमेश जी के मैसेजेस गए थे उसकी वजह से, तो उस ग्रुप्स के बारे में कुछ पता चला है? क्योंकि उनके मैसेजेस खाली नुपुर शर्मा के सपोर्ट में थे, है ना?
मैडम, उसमें मेरे को इतना कुछ डिटेल आइडिया नहीं है, क्योंकि अपन नहीं करते चेक किसी का मोबाइल।
दूसरे कौन से ग्रुप्स थे उसमें? क्योंकि काफ़ी सारे जो मैसेजेस हैं, ब्लैक फ्रीडम करके एक जो उसमें आ रहा है, उसमें उमेश जी के मैसेजेस भी बहुत ज़्यादा वायरल हो रहे हैं।
मेरे को वो मोबाइल के अंदर के मैसेज की कुछ भी आइडिया नहीं है। वैसे भी पुलिस वालों ने वो पहले ही जमा कर लिया था मोबाइल।
उनका फ़ोन ले लिया था। और जो डॉक्टर यूसुफ थे वो आपके शायद जानकार के थे, वो आपके जान पहचान के थे, क्या उनका भी नाम अभी जो आया है तो उससे कोई बात हुई है?
नहीं।
वो आपको किस तरह से आप उनको जानते थे, मतलब क्या उनका रिलेशन था?
अच्छे दोस्त थे पिताजी के, बस।
और ये जो इरफान शेख का जो नाम आ रहा है, उनसे कोई बातचीत हुई थी या रहबार फाउंडेशन से?
नहीं
उनसे कोई भी कभी ये नाम भी आपके उसमें नहीं?
नहीं नहीं।
Thank you so much, Sanket, हमसे बात करने के लिए. So that was Sanket Kolhe, in fact, the son of Umesh Kolhe, who had been brutally murdered with a conspiracy that in fact had been going on on WhatsApp groups, where there were at least 8 accused that we know of had been talking about this, and there were several messages in support of this brutal killing as well against Umesh Kolhe, and also saying that there is a celebration that should take place because he had been the one who was supporting Nupur Sharma as well. With video journalist Vipin Mori, I'm Priyanka Sharma for Republic.
This brutal murder was completely caught on CCTV footage. In fact, Republic TV has now accessed 8 CCTV footage, which will give you a sense of what really transpired on the night of 21st of June when Umesh Kolhe, a chemist, had left from his pharmacy. What really transpired? Let's play that out one by one. Let's take a look at the first CCTV footage that has been accessed by Republic TV, in which you can see victim Umesh Kolhe is leaving. He's been followed by his wife and son. That's CCTV footage 1. Let's take a look at the other footages one by one. If our producers can also tell me about the footages that we are playing out right now, but you'll get a sense of what's really happening. Let's take a look at sequence 2, where what you can see is the accused waiting for Kolhe in a corner. Interestingly, the accused then starts chasing Umesh into the dark street. So it's very clear that he was actually waiting for Umesh to actually reach his residence. And the moment he reached, he started chasing him, and you can see that on your screens right now. Let's move to the third CCTV that has now been accessed, in which you can see the attack is spotted on the CCTV footage as the bike topples. Umesh is attacked. That's CCTV footage number 3. Moments after he was chased down the street, he was then attacked brutally. And this is exactly what happens. Let's take a look at CCTV footage 1. And interesting to point out here is that all of them can be seen in this footage. Attackers are seen fleeing from the site. Both are on bikes and on foot. So for about 11 days, remember, they could not find the prime accused, when all of them can be seen in that CCTV footage. Let's take a look at CCTV footage number 5. That's when the 2 attackers can be seen on the motorcycle. Attackers are seen doing the recce and recce of the area. It's important to point out here is that once again, this footage will tell you how this was entirely premeditated. That's CCTV footage number 5. Let's move to CCTV footage number 6 right now. These are multiple visuals of the entire sequence where the attackers are basically caught on CCTV footage. So there are multiple CCTV footage which has been gathered by the police. Remember, when the investigation was actually carried out, all of these CCTV footage was thoroughly examined by the police. That was one of the major leads that the police had at that point in time. Amravati police says that this was a blind and a sensitive case. Let's take a look at CCTV footage 7. Now, this, interestingly viewers, is the clearest CCTV footage. What you can see is the accused in this particular footage. Kolhe's murder, the brutal murder, is now captured in this particular CCTV footage that has been accessed. And finally, let's move to the last footage that has now been accessed by Republic TV, where the murderers can see fleeing from the crime scene. There are 3 murderers who flee on a bike. All of this is now caught on CCTV footage. So total of 8 CCTV footages that have been accessed. Remember, this encapsulates the entire incident that has taken place. So for many who believe that this was a robbery that has gone wrong, was completely debunked when the investigation was carried out, and it turns out that not a single valuable item was taken away from Umesh Kolhe, which made it abundantly clear that this was a case of hate crime and certainly not a robbery that's gone wrong. Let's go across to my colleague Priyanka, who's been camping in Amravati. She's spoken to all the stakeholders. She's spoken to the police to find out about the investigation that's been carried out. Remember, this case has now been transferred to the National Investigation Agency. All the 7 accused have been taken into custody. They are in transit remand right now. Priyanka, these CCTV footage that has been accessed clearly goes on to indicate that this was purely premeditated. They had planned this. They had planned it to the extent that they would be waiting just next to his house, waiting till the time that he returns. It turns out that they were aware of the timing. They were aware of the fact that perhaps how much time it would have taken for Umesh Kolhe to reach his house after leaving his pharmacy.
Well, that's right, Shavan. You know, the CCTV footages have said it all, and you've also put this into perspective brilliantly, because the investigation that is being carried out, earlier we had seen that the local cops had been saying that this is a robbery that has gone wrong. But over the course of the court arguments that we have heard during the remand of the key accused, Irfan Sheikh, there were arguments that had been made that 35,000 cash was still in the pants of Umesh Kolhe on his dead body while he had already been killed. And also there were 3 to 4 gold chains that were in his neck that were found from on his dead body itself. So this really had an indication that if the attackers had in fact attacked on his neck, they had access to the gold chains, and if they had come with the intent of robbery, they would have snatched that the first thing going in. So these were the kind of theories that were being, that was refuting the entire statement of Amravati police claiming that this was a robbery gone wrong. However, 2 days back now they have completely made a U-turn and said that we never called it a robbery. But that being said, there was of course no denying that the Amravati police had been claiming that they are investigating into this as the robbery angle of it. But apart from that, it has been made abundantly clear in these CCTV footages that this was in fact, as you rightly pointed it out, that it was in fact a hate crime, Shavan, that all of these accused had been doing a lot of recce around the house of Umesh Kolhe, because we have seen the statements of Sanket Kolhe as well, his son. We just heard him as well. There are several parts where he has said the accused, 2 to 3 of the accused, he had recognized earlier because they had been seen in and around the house. It was only after Umesh Kolhe had been murdered that he had also recognized that 2 to 3 of them had been around the house. They had been following Umesh Kolhe to understand what really was the daily routine of Umesh Kolhe when he would be alone and vulnerable to attack as well. And that has been made very clear in the CCTV footage and also the conversation with Shakil that we had.
Well, thank you very much, Priyanka, for getting us the latest details. Trust you to keep us ahead on this story as more and more details are now emerging of what's the truth behind the killing in Amravati. On the other side, several parts of Karnataka are reeling under floods, but the MLAs of the state are on study tours. Republic TV has accessed the itinerary of yet another such study tour where MLAs are now headed to Gujarat and Delhi this time. Details in the next report.
A local BJP leader from Padra, Nilesh Jadhav, has received death threats over his comments condemning the brutal killing of Udaipur's Kanhaiya Lal, who was killed for supporting ex-BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma on her remarks on Prophet Muhammad. Now an FIR has now been registered for the same. BJP leaders were seen leaving the residence of party leader and Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis after attending the party's core committee meeting. The Union Minister Piyush Goyal and C.T. Ravi were also present during that meeting. Amid a revolt by the Azad group, the Congress is likely to get a new state president for Jammu and Kashmir. KC Venugopal and AICC Jammu and Kashmir in charge, Rajni Patil, held 2 rounds of meetings with the Congress state president Kamer.
Vehicles purposefully slowed down traffic on UK motorways as they protested over high fuel prices. The protest caused disruption on the M4 between the Bristol area and South Wales and other routes. The protests were organised on social media with the banner "Fuel Price Stand Against Tax." Police made multiple arrests as they sought to reinstate regular traffic flow. At least 6 people killed, 10 others reported missing after they were caught in a massive avalanche triggered by the collapse of the Marmolada Glacier. In the northern Italian Alps, the snow and rock came sweeping down on the mountain. The tragic incident struck hikers while they were en route to the summit.
And here's a look at some other news in brief this morning. Incessant monsoon rainfall has caused waterlogging in several low-lying areas of Mumbai. The BMC has requested people to stay indoors and away from shores and not go to waterlogged areas. Earlier, the IMD had issued an orange alert, while the weather department has also issued a yellow alert predicting heavy rains for the city of Mumbai. Well, Mumbaikars can expect heavy rains in the city for the next 3 days. Heavy rainfall was witnessed in several areas. 5 NDRF teams have been deployed in the city in view of the heavy rain forecast. The IMD in its 5-day forecast said that heavy to very heavy rain is likely in Mumbai for the next 3 days. The Hanumangarh police station has arrested 5 people accused of making a video of the Udaipur beheading and sharing it. The video had gone viral on social media and spread panic amongst the general public.
And in other international news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the reconstruction of his country, which is being battered by Russia's armed invasion, is the common task of the entire democratic world. The Ukrainian Prime Minister laid out a $750 billion recovery plan to help Ukraine move towards a peaceful future when the war ends. Russian President Vladimir Putin declares victory in eastern Ukrainian region of Luhansk, 1 day after Ukrainian forces withdraw from their last remaining bulwark.
You can see all the 3 killers, the suspects who are seen here, that they were ready and prepared, waiting in a corner. And this is around 10:11, about 15 minutes before the act of murder. These are pictures of the public. This visual shows people, the attackers, the suspects, gearing up to attack Umesh Kolhe.
ബ്രിട്ടീഷുകാരൻ പറഞ്ഞത് തയ്യാറാക്കി കൊടുത്ത ഒരു ഭരണഘടന ഇന്ത്യക്കാർ എഴുതി വെച്ചു. ഈ രാജ്യത്ത് ഏറ്റവും കൊള്ളയടിക്കാൻ പറ്റിയ ഏറ്റവും മനോഹരമായ ഒരു ഭരണഘടന ഇന്ത്യ എഴുതി വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്.
On the biggest story tonight at 7 p.m.
This is exclusive. On the other side, news and updates continue with my colleague Abhishek Kapoor.
Thank you so much, Shawan. From Amravati to Udaipur to the Kerala minister's story, all that and more, along with Mumbai floods. And here are the headlines. A new video of the Amravati murder emerges. Killers clearly spotted in the new CCTV footage. Kerala Minister belittles Constitution, says it was formed to aid the rich. Will Pinarayi government take action? Massive anger over provocative smoking Kali poster. Multiple FIRs registered against the director. Shocking racism at Edgbaston. Indian fans allege racist comments hurled during India-England test match. Vastu expert murdered in Hubali. CCTV footage captures the moment of the murder. 2 accused arrested. After mid-air fire alarm and cabin smoke scare. Another Spicejet incident reported. Delhi flight en route to Dubai diverted to Karachi. All right, back to back, two incidents reported on Spicejet flights. Earlier we had the Delhi-Dubai flight diverted to Karachi because of a malfunction, and now another one, this time flying out of Kandla in Kutch, Gujarat to Mumbai, SG-3324, a Q400 aircraft of the Spicejet, had its windshield cracking up on the pilot 2 side, and it caused a bit of a scare in the cockpit, but then there was no change in pressurization as per the statement given by the Spicejet, and the aircraft landed safely in Mumbai. Let's go to Harsha. She is reporting on details of the story. Harsha, if you could share what the Spicejet has to say about this latest incident involving one of their flights, this time from Kandla to Mumbai.
See, one thing which we have seen in the statement which the airline has issued, which clearly states that the pressurization was checked, and before the takeoff of the flight, all the wind vanes were clearly checked. But this mid-air crisis resulted in the outer windshield of the plane, which was seen as cracked. Though no emergency happened, and plane was safely landed, which was taken from Gujarat to Mumbai. But one thing is to be noticed that this is in 3 weeks. This is the 7th safety-related concern issue of Spicejet. Initially, 3 weeks before, we also saw the safety-related